Hello, Tabitha here. I got a little package from Dakota Pastels, and today we're going to answer the question on which pastels work over watercolors, so we can kind of pick and choose and know where to spend our money. So let's go ahead and open these up. We got the hardness sampler with a nice selection here. I got one Diane Townsend really bright one, and I got the dark sampler with just about every soft pastel you could probably want to try. So today we're going to test these against one another, and I'm also going to bring in a Blick, a Conte Paris, and 3 pencils, Stabilo, Pitt, and Conte pastel pencils. So let's see what works over watercolor. Let me get the sheet prepared. All right, we have the paper all prepared. One note is the bottom one is pastel matte that I put watercolor over, and take note, the tape, it seeped right underneath the tape, so that's something to know. The top one is just hot pressed with Holbein watercolor over it. I used olive green for all 3, and the middle one is sprayed with this texture fixative, which it's not very textured. It's actually a really light texture, so we'll give that a try, and it seems to have gone over the watercolor just fine. So we're going to go ahead and go right on through them, and we're going to make a line and kind of like a solid piece and then a smudge, and see how it works on each type of paper having been watercolored already, and see which ones work and which ones don't. First one up is Sennelier Full Stick. It did kind of crumble a little bit when I opened the package, so let's go ahead and see if we can make a line. And it works very easily, and a solid, kind of a fat line, not great for detail. All of it seems to be gripping very well. And let's go ahead and see if we can smudge. And it doesn't really stick in the smudge too well. Better. And you can see how Pastel Matte just kind of grabs that right on in, and the regular watercolor paper did not even with the texture spray. So let's go through all of these. And we have Richardson's Hand Rolled. It's a very pretty color. And I put the Pastel Matte down basically so that we could have kind of a, like a, you know, that's like an ideal pastel. And it didn't stick again. It sticks a little better here, but not a lot of dust. And of course Pastel Matte grabs that right on in. So these soft pastels, these really soft ones, are not grabbing to the watercolor paper. This is Great American. It's kind of got a scratchy feel. Lots of dust. A lot of dust. Still a lot of dust. A little bit better though. And pushes pretty much right in. So we're not doing so great on these really soft pastels. And this is a soft form by Diane Townsend. And we'll go ahead. This is a lot smoother than, it's about equivalent to a Sennelier, maybe even softer. And let's see if we can smudge this out. Still quite a bit of dust. Lots of dust again. And pushes in pretty nicely. I'm hoping that you can see that. I will give you a closer up view once we have them all done. And I'm trying to just use this little like foam piece because I figured my fingers would get too contaminated, which I'm trying to wipe off as we go along. And now we have blocks. Blocks tends to be, I think, a little harder, and it is a lot harder. And I can feel like it's a little bit grainy. And it doesn't really want to make a line. Let's see if it makes a line on pastel matte. No, it's... It's kind of very dusty. That's what I want to say. It's very dusty. And you can see how it just kind of falls apart there. It doesn't push in. I'm pushing with medium pressure. It does push right into the pastel matte though. So far, we're not looking so great on top of watercolor paper, even when we add a little texture. And next up, we have Art Spectrum Extra Soft. And this label was kind of a little funky. And not really a great line drawer here. Beautiful color though. Very smooth. Kind of feels similar to the Diane Townsend. Not gritty. But the lines are very fat. And let's see how it smudges in. And it just kind of doesn't move. And that one didn't move very much either. And pastel matte gets a little bit of a move. So these don't move a lot, but they might be, it might be good. Art Spectrum might be good for adding like dots or flowers on top of watercolor. Now we have Geralt. Very firm feeling stick. It was also in the other set, but I put I just am doing it once, so I put in the Blick in its place over there. So let's see if we can do a line. Not too bad. It's compared to Richardson's, and this one has a little more grip, but it's still smooth. Not too bad on the line. Much better even on pastel matte. Get a nice sharp line there. And let's see how it smudges out. It kind of stays in place. It doesn't really smudge or move. So that might be good for a detail. And now we go into Mount Vision. This is a really chunky stick, I have to say. Really fat. Let's see how it does. Line. Moderate. A little bit powdery. I think I moved that so we'll get... The line's a little fatter, but it does keep together and actually look quite detailed. And that one grabbed okay. Still a little dusty. Quite nice. And now we go to Schminky, which is said to be one of the softest pastels out there. It didn't break when I tore off part of the wrapper. And let's see how soft this is. Oh wow. Like that was really soft. It's it kind of feels like buttery silk. Yeah, it really you put it down, you only need a little bit of that one. Very potent. And that one grabbed a little bit. Grabbed better on there. And grabbed very well on there. So this one has a little bit more grab than some of the other ones. Not as powdery as some of the other ones. Unison. A lot of people really like unisons. They say that they're kind of in the middle ground of the soft pastels. Nice line. It does feel like I have a little bit more control. It's a kind of a fat line. This one's a little better on Pastel Matte. It does feel like it has a little bit of control there. I'm new to pastels, so this is all an experiment for me to see if I want to get a couple more of any brand. Quite dusty, but it did push in. Some of these look a lot more transparent. I'm trying to use the same amount of pressure, but I'm not sure. Quite nice feel though to it. Then we have Blue Earth, which is said to be extremely soft. And I think this one is the Dakota Pastels House brand. Very buttery, just like the feel of the Schminky. Not quite as easy to put down though, but really soft. Very, very soft. I feel like I could almost squish it in my fingers. So let's see how this one kind of melts in. Not a lot of dust. That's kind of nice. It does have some nice opacity to it. And now let's try another one that is a favorite among a lot of pastel artists. This is a Terry Ludwig, and these are supposed to be incredibly soft as well. Very soft, again. A little bit more gritty than the Blue Earth or the Schminky. Or Schminka. I've heard it pronounced both ways. Has a little more grab to it. Not quite as soft as those others. I'd compare the softness of the Terry Ludwig to, I'd go Diane Townsend, maybe a little bit harder than that one. Not quite as hard as the Mountain Vision. It's very comparable to a Richardson, I'd say, the feel that I was getting off of it. I'm talking out loud here, trying to figure it out. Very dusty though. Very dusty. Using this to rub it in, this little piece of foam, I'm trying to keep consistent so that I don't have like any oils on my fingers or something that's changing it. So now we're going to move into slightly harder pastels. And this is a Rembrandt, a favorite by many. And let's see what we have. Ooh, really nice line. Yes, very nice line. Ooh, that felt like, I expected it to be harder, but it actually felt quite creamy. So let's go ahead and smudge that out. It kind of stays in place, doesn't move around a lot. I'm noticing that the harder pastels don't move as easily. Next up we have Blick, their house brand. Let's see how. Not too bad. Feels quite close to the Rembrandt, maybe not quite as creamy. Trying to really keep my fingers out of all the swatches so when we take a closer look I didn't smudge them up. Very close to the Rembrandts, I'd say. And let's see how they smudge out. About the same. They stay in place. They don't smudge out a lot. Tiny bit more than the Rembrandt. I think they're a hair softer. Just a touch. But the Rembrandts felt a tiny bit creamier. So let's get into the Art Spectrum. This is their standard one, not their ultra soft one that we saw back here. This was their extra soft. Let's see how this feels. It definitely is a lot harder. Not a creamy feel like the Rembrandts, a drier feel. I'd say this is pretty close to the Blick as well. Let's go ahead and see if they move. Nope. Not much at all. Not much at all. Now we have Holbein. Nice square pastel. Should make a nice line. And it does. Very nice line. This actually feels drier, but creamy all in the same time. So I don't know if this would just flake off because it is quite powdery, quite dry. Let's see how these smudge out. And they don't go anywhere. Nope, stay exactly. They're a pretty hard pastel matte. It does smudge a little bit here. Not a lot. So where you put that one, it will pretty much stay. Yeah. That's kind of interesting. Now we go Cretacolor, which is a very hard pastel. Full hard rating. I think Holbein is still rated at medium. And we have very nice line. Yep, definitely where you put it. Very scratchy feel. Yeah, very scratchy feel. It doesn't have any kind of softness to it, and it's not going anywhere as well. So these harder ones might be really nice to add to watercolors if you're just looking for details and lines on top of your watercolor to bring back maybe some highlights. This Holbein was the most powdery out of these so far. And this is Conte à Paris, their crayon. And this should be pretty similar to the Cretacolor. And it is. It has a grit to it. It's a little powdery. I'd say it's in between the Cretacolor and the Holbein, with just because it's a little bit more powdery. I don't know if you can see that. Yeah, it has that gritty feeling of the Cretacolor, but it has a little bit more powderiness of like the Holbein did. And let's see, it probably is not gonna, it moved a little bit, not much. I'd say the Conte à Paris crayons moved a little bit more than the Holbein, the Cretacolor, and the Art Spectrum harder pastel. So that's kind of interesting that they moved a little bit heavier, a little bit fuller. So now we go into a little pan pastel, which lots of people really love. We're gonna try and get a little line here. I left a little bit more space, and of course we can't get a very good line with this. I'm sure if we got a smaller instrument to apply it, we might, but, and then we have our, trying to keep it very consistent. And let's see if that one smudges out. It is very soft, and it smudges quite nicely without a lot of dust. Could be by the way that you put it down, but you will not get details out of that one. And now let's try a little bit of pencils here. We'll try the Contes up first, and nice line. Not as thin of a line as I would think from coming from a pencil. You can't sharpen these extremely or they will, with lighter pressure, I can get a little better of a line. Let's see if that smudges out at all. It just kind of removes it. A little bit of smudging on the pastel mat, but a lot of those little swatches got a lot lighter. Now we have the Pit, which is supposed to be one of the harder pencils, and really nice small line. It kind of goes into the paper a little better. Not as much dust came off of that. Let's see if we maintain any after smudging. It did lose a little bit after smudging as well. So good for details if you just leave it alone. Pastel mat did grab it, but these did get fainter. And our last up is Stabilo, which I hear is one of the softest pencils. And it is. It's like butter coming out. But not as thin of a line as the Pit. Let's see if there's anything left after we smudge it. It did press into the paper better. So out of the three pencils, the Stabilo gives you a better mass. The Pit gives you the best line, and Conte's kind of in between them, with the Pit being the hardest and Stabilo being the softest. They are kind of like a middle ground on those pencils. So let's go ahead and take a closer look. So overall, the really soft pastels don't grab to the watercolor paper that well. I'm sure if you kind of leave them, and maybe even if you squish them in a little bit, they stain up the paper nicely. I'd say the Sennelier, let me think here. Yeah, the Sennelier, the Schminke, and let me feel that one again. Maybe not. Sennelier worked quite well. You can see the pigment, how rich it is. They all put down pigment, but when they spread out, a lot of them got really, really dusty in here. You can see over here, there's like no dust. So this could make your paper a little sloppy if you're using the extremely soft ones. I really like the feel of the Rembrandt and the Blick. Holbein had a powdery, creamy feel, which is kind of opposite. So I don't know how that did that, but I think over watercolor, these do quite well, especially if you're doing highlights. Now, if you use watercolor on pastel matte, look at these vibrant colors. I mean, it is really, really beautiful. The vibrancy is quite different compared to the regular paper. I would say that the colors look about the same on the one that I coated with the texture as the regular watercolor paper, so I don't think that changed anything. And if I look at them, it barely grabbed some of the ultra soft pastels, even a smidgen more, so that extra step I don't think benefits you in any way. Now, I've heard of people using clear gesso to put over their watercolors, but I've also seen that drab down or flatten and matte the color, and I'm using it basically as a topper that I'd like an accent or to bring back some highlights. So I think the couple of pencils, for a large area, a pan would work, but it kind of looks a little flat. And these harder pastels in through here from Rembrandt, Blick, Art Spectrum, Harder Pastel, Holbein, I think these actually look a little better or more durable over the watercolor as is. Now, if you really wanted to spark a color, the Sennelier really gave a really nice, and that could be due to the color as well, it gave a very vivid look. Some of these look a little bit more muted. I think some of these, like the Terry Ludwig, the Blue Earth, the Schmincke, and the not Mount Vision, the Art Spectrum and the Diane and the Great American were so soft that I felt like I lost a little bit of control using it on watercolor paper. Obviously, on pastel matte, it's absolutely gorgeous, and I can see how pastel artists just love it for the vivid colors, but it loses a lot of that vividness on these softer pastels as we go to the watercolor paper. Let me see. Oh, the blocks felt very hard, but it was soft at the same time, and I don't know, it had a weird kind of feel to me, so that didn't go. But this Girault, I think, actually goes more over in these Rembrandts. It did come in like a hardness comparison pack by Dakota Pastels, but it's definitely harder and it doesn't smudge out as much, and the color's quite vivid. So I'd actually put this over in my choices to use on top of watercolor paper. But wow, look at the colors all the way. There are no bad pastels here. I was just trying to find out if I bought a couple of more to use over my watercolors, which ones I might like and I might choose. And I thought you might also like that knowledge and to see where you might want to spend your money. So I appreciate you keeping with me through this whole experiment today. You have a great one. I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.